Good afternoon. My name is Mark Aman, and I serve on AHOA's Education Committee. And every year, our team works hard enough to ensure that we bring you the educational session that really matters, and delivered by, of course, the professional AHOA peers and the industry experts, and some of them are sitting in front of you right now. But to progress and move ahead, we need your help. How? When we would get to the audience Q&A slide, you would see a QR code over there. So you take out your phone only at that time and scan the code and give us your feedback. Let us know about the topics that you want us to bring in during the year and also in the next year's conference. So right now, if all of you can please take out your phones, put that on silent. If you think you have eaten too much, put that on vibrate. Maybe that can help you staying up, because usually a post-lunch session is a graveyard kind of a session. Yesterday when I was introducing the moderator, and when I went back, someone said, "You told me to silence the phone, but if my wife calls, I have to answer, else I'm in trouble." I said, if you are married to that person, you are already in trouble. But anyways, so now I would like to introduce Tony, an amazing moderator, an amazing lively speaker. Speaker is a small word for her. But without wasting time, let me introduce Tony. I always
It's all right.
mispronounce
I struggle with your last name too.
But please come over and take it from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. My name's Tony Giacaruso. I am the president of Giacaruso Enterprises. Our company provides remote hotel sales support, lead generation, prospecting services. I founded the company in 2007. We support currently over 800 hotels. I have 117 of those hotels are branded as extended stay. We have 112 employees. You can meet some of those at our booth, 535, or Miss Cheryl Fosberry's in the front row here. We're happy to talk to you about what we do. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be here with these people. This is one of those panels that is really remarkable because we each have a skill set that takes a really, really good balance of what we're trying to articulate today. Thank you for coming after lunch. I know that napping was probably an option for you, so we're going to do the best we can to provide the most value so that you can take that back and increase profitability at your hotels or make an impact at your hotels. So I'm really glad you're here. I'm glad our Red Roof friends are here. Got a cheering section for Matt. Many of you know Matt. He's been around a lot. He's way more popular than I am. He is the Chief Development Officer for Red Roof and knows all there is to know about developing and building hotels. So that's a really, really good person to reach out to and resource as you're thinking about adding franchises to your portfolio. Kate Berta is phenomenal. She's one of the most intelligent women I know. And she really focuses on sales strategy, and it's a remarkable way that she's able to do that. Jim is CEO and president of Sandpiper Hospitality. They are a remarkable company focused primarily on profitability. They're focused on outstanding guest service in an era where we have a limited amount of labor, and they just do a terrific job on that. So I'm so pleased to have these people with me, and I feel blessed to be up here. And thank you for coming. I just want to turn it over to these guys and they'll tell you a little about who they are, where they currently live. I'm very curious about that. I live in Austin, Texas. And then I'll also get a little more information about what they do and their extended stay experience, because it's tremendous. So thank you for being here. Would you like to start, Matt?
Love to start. Thank you very much. So bear with me. My voice has been a little raspy today from the event. It typically gets this way. So thank you, everyone, for coming. I am the Chief Development Officer at Red Roof. I've been with the organization for 10 years. I'm in my 11th year with the brand. I've also spent some time with Wyndham Worldwide in my early franchising days, handled some franchises, mergers and acquisitions with your neighborhood and large Coldwell Banker real estate brand. Very proud to spend time with them as well. So more than 20 plus years of franchising, the experience there. Where do I live?
I like your address, please, so I can hunt you out.
Yeah, right. I make my home in a small town called Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania. No one knows where that is, so I'm from Hershey, Pennsylvania. So it's the next town over. I can get to Hershey in 3 minutes, in Elizabethtown, 15. So it's Harrisburg region. I'm originally from Pittsburgh. Go Steelers. Good. Oh, we starting off on the wrong foot?
Wow.
And I'm looking forward to sharing information with you today along with these other esteemed panelists.
Hey, so before I start, I'm going to say, Cam Chow, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, right? Yeah,
Right.
pretty good,
Everything
right?
was close.
And I hope, Maja Chow? Maja Chow? Macho. Maja Chow. I tried this all. This is what I was doing last night while you all were partying. I was learning something.
See how that worked out?
Yeah. So I'm OG extended stay. I started in Residence Inn and worked for Jack DeBoer a number of years, who was kind of the godfather of the whole scene. And then I was with the launching of 2 extended stay brands, one Candlewood, the other one Hyatt House. And now I have an advisory group where we look at revenue strategy, as Tony was saying. And so my job is, I think all of you guys are familiar with a P&L, or there's somebody in your organization that knows a P&L. Well, I'm the R on that P&L. And so I look at how do companies make more money. And so that ranges everywhere from launching a brand to actually growing a new business line to how do we make our commercial teams of sales, marketing, and revenue management do more. So I call Dallas home if I'm not on American Airlines. And I'm really glad to be with these folks here.
Thank you. I was going to say I live on seat 23C on Delta Airlines, somewhere flying over the country. My name is Jim Darter. I lead Sandpiper Hospitality. We're based in Richmond, Virginia. We manage 67 hotels across the country with a high level of focus on extended stay. Almost all of our hotels are extended stay. We have some dual brands as well. But we have a tremendous team that we've been able to build over the last really 12 to 15 years. We manage our 2/3 of our hotels for a related owner and a third for third-party clients. We have over 11 third-party clients. We manage 15 different brands all over the U.S., and we really see ourselves as one of the experts in extended stay and just feel that it's an incredible place to be, evidenced by all the new brands that are coming in. But I very much appreciate being here, and thank you all.
Thanks, Jim. By a show of hands, can you let me know if you own or currently work at an extended stay brand? Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we have a lot of people that have a very deep knowledge, so I'll be eager to get any questions you have at the end. We will be doing a Q&A. But for those of you that might not be as familiar with the segment, I'm very curious to know from our panelists why they think the extended stay segment is valuable, and should a traditional hotel or a full service hotel or a boutique hotel, a hotel that's not branded as an extended stay, should they also have extended stay business in their portfolio or in their property? Is that something you would recommend? Jim, do you want to start with your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. We saw through COVID, obviously, how well extended stay performed. It really was the proof of what everybody had thought and known about extended stay hotels, that it could survive just about anything, and we got just about everything and anything. With COVID, it was absolutely tremendous what happened for extended stay. By the time our hotels got into June of 2020, and the rest of the industry was still upside down, our hotels were beating 2019. And it continued all the way through into 23. So it is a tremendous place to really see a risk-averse environment for investments, very consistent, reliable returns. And depending on where you are in the scale, there's a lot of different factors that matter. So if you're in an economy, mid-scale, you're going to get a lot more extended stay. And that is going to show up as a lower ADR, but it goes right to the bottom line if you have the right mix. If you're in the Residence Inn, we have a couple of Residence Inns here in Florida, Homewood, Hawthorne Suites. If you're in those brands, they tend to have a higher mix of transient. So you've got to be careful. You're going to get better ADR. Most likely, you're going to be getting much better ADR, but what you might do is block, and I'm getting into your area here, sorry, you may block that extended stay from coming into your hotel. So there's a lot of things that factor into it, and if you're looking for extended stay as a place to invest, it's very consistent, very reliable, and really is just a tremendous place to be, evidenced by COVID, but ever since then as well.
Yeah, and it's a lot. Jim is exactly right, of course. And what we're seeing is a lot of people are so excited about extended stay for the reasons that he's talking about. Is it's really resilient against the economy. It's profitable as heck. You know, we talk about flow. I have advisory in some big box hotels around McCormick, and the flow we get in an extended stay, no matter what the brand is, the flow is incredible, even compared to some of the big boxes. And so, of course, you're going to be interested in it. But what you have to know is kind of what Jim touched on here, is what you do over here doesn't work over here. It doesn't work. So you may be really excited that you have a wedding of 25 rooms on a Friday and Saturday, but what you don't know, and you applaud and all that happens, but then you don't know is that you've actually messed yourself up for the next 2-3 months, and that piece of business washed, and here you've foregone all of your extended stay, your extended stay revenue, just because you're taking what we've always known to be true and tried and good over here and applying it over here, and it just doesn't work. So it's an easy hotel to build, right? I mean, the box is easy, 122 rooms, it's easy, blah, blah, blah. We figured out how it works, but where it's really extremely nuanced is how that sales, marketing, and revenue management happen, because it's extremely different. And so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, in 2018, Red Roof launched Hometown Studio. My voice is really going. We launched Hometown Studios by Red Roof. And with that, we converted approximately 57 open hotels with that name on it. And in turn, we decided that the business is so good that we launched a new construction prototype. Fast forward to what Jim leaned into with COVID. The world kind of stopped in front of our face. Our numbers actually ticked up at each one of our properties. We have a dual brand as well. So we've been very bullish on that particular prototype. We've actually went in and retooled each piece of that prototype and to make it even more value engineered for you, the developer, the owner, bringing the cost down more reasonable because of the costs, how they inflated so much when COVID hit and then after COVID. And a lot of those costs are still in place today, and we know that. So it's very important to understand that each and every piece of this hotel is designed or should be designed for profit. So, and again, you go back to the stay. Let's understand what extended stay definition is first, right? Extended stay is a hotel room that has a full-service kitchenette in every room of that hotel. So if you think you have 20 rooms and you have some things in some rooms in the other, and you're considered an extended stay hotel, by definition, you're not. So you have to take a look at the markets that you're in, whether you're doing a conversion or new construction. First of all, and I would suggest, we're talking about development, going to your local zoning board, making sure that what you think you're about to dig into, that you're allowed to dig into. And what I mean by that is having an extended stay in that town or city or ordinance. So that is very key to make sure that you start out the right way. Because sometimes the minute you say stove, the whole town just looks at you like, whoa, not sure we want 122 or 124 basically efficiency apartments in our town at any level. So we have to sell through that as owners, franchisors, developers, management companies that are coming into town to do this with a owner. We have to sell through that and make sure that they understand what this segment really is, because we still have to educate a lot of people. So.
If I'll just go a little bit further with that, not only once you've developed it, but once you're operating it, if you don't have a general manager and a team there that's making sure you're looking after the asset and the building, you're going to experience a lot of problems that could really, really hurt your investment. So there is some risk there, and you need the right operator and the right team on the ground there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, thank you, you guys. Kate, you talk a lot about revenue strategy and not necessarily sales or revenue management.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that and why is that important?
Yeah, I love it when I say, and I'm a strategist by nature. That's really what I do. And I say, I do revenue strategy. And they're like, oh, you're revenue management. I'm like, no. That's part of it, pumpkin. That's part of it, right?
But you're from Texas, isn't it strategery?
And so revenue management is a discipline that manages the allotment of rooms and pricing by the distribution channels. They also focus on established demand. Sales and marketing focus on how do we create demand. So at the end of the day, when you hear what I do, I make you more money. That's what I do. That's what I focus on. So why is my work so important to you? You know, in a day where interest rates are extremely high and money is not cheap, and ADRs are hard, the last thing, you know, we see a lot of people talking about cutting costs. And I got to tell you, working with you and being a part of your group, I know this is a cost-cutting group. That is a culture, right? You do this. What I will say to you is so many meetings I sit in, we have tedious conversations about the cost of a key, which has gone from 6 cents to 7%, or 6 cents to 7 cents, and now with technology, it's going to 70 cents. And we have all these conversations about operational efficiencies that may save you $400 a month. Yet we don't have the conversations of what we can do on the top line that flows through, that I can get you a multiplier of anywhere from 10 to even, and I'm serious, 1,000%. And it all goes back to understanding your mix, understanding the mix of that customer, and who that customer is. Because Jim brings up a really good point. As this market, or as extended stay becomes more saturated, we have these levels of, your Hyatt House, your Candlewood, and all of these people entering the marketplace. And what's happening is we're starting to bastardize it all because we're getting excited about ADR. So yeah, let me take the transient guest. Let's take more of that. Then all of a sudden we're adding a breakfast offering. And then we're adding something else because they want something else, because we're kind of working now in this mess. And then all of a sudden I have to get a GM that costs more. And then here it goes, right? And so really understanding that model, understanding how that model works as far for your hotels, as well as how do we hunt for it within sales and marketing, is really, really key to the success.
Excellent. You know, Jim, I know that at Sandpiper Hospitality, you're, as an owner and an operator, your focus is on profitability. And the way that you get there is through outstanding guest experience. I don't know, is anybody struggling with the labor market today? Anybody? Okay, so we know that the labor pool is shallow. Talk to us about how you provide a spectacular extended stay experience and what the guest experience is different in extended stay. What do they expect compared to your traditional guests? And how do you do that to continue to increase profitability at your hotels?
Thank you. I don't think we can talk spectacular until we talk about the absolute basics for extended stay, because our guests are there because it's a need, usually a need more than a desire. They're not traveling on a vacation typically. They're there, they have a reason to be there. I've often referred to it as a bridge. They're here and they need to be here, whatever that means, and we provide that bridge. We give them time to get settled, to restart, to get a new job, to have their house built, to work out a job or a project. And what they need is a second home. They need clean, safe, and friendly. And if you're not that, you can't at all talk about being spectacular. So we start with that. It's probably the 90-10 rule. And that is where we really have something that we call brilliant at the basics. Our team is exceptionally focused on getting those basics exactly right from day one in order to establish a possibility of getting to spectacular. We have an example of this as a hotel that we have it's a Wood Springs in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's been open for 3 years. The general manager opened the hotel. Her name is Sarah Gilliam, and over 3 years, she's achieved 256 TripAdvisors and has a perfect 5.0 score.
Wow.
And when you read those comments, and I encourage you to, because I read them often, it's almost emotional to hear how much the people that are staying at that hotel absolutely are captivated by how good she is at what she does, how much she cares for them, how much she holds people accountable in the hotel, and at the same time delivers incredible service. And I wish I could say we had 66 of those hotels. We've got a bunch that do very well, but it's a spectacular example of what you can do. If you take it into more higher end, more to the upscale extended stay, you have more opportunity. You're getting paid anywhere from $80 to $100 more when you look at the Highland Group and the ADRs that you get in upscale versus economy. You have a lot more, you have a few more amenities. So you can activate that lobby, you can activate the pool area, you can activate a market. You know, we work with Impulsify, and they do a great market for us at some of our dual brand hotels. And you can do a lot of fun things and not have the spiral downward with costs. Your costs are still going to be higher because your variable costs are up. But being able to do some of those things allows you to have some fun and get to that spectacular. But if you're not doing the basics at any level of extended stay and keeping that clean, safe, and friendly, you don't have a chance. And our guests tell us that all the time.
Yeah, great point. Thank you so much. Matt, I'm very curious about extended stay development and development in an extended stay brand different and from a traditional hotel or even a full service hotel. Tell me about the footprint, the investment. What is that, give us a understanding of how that's different, extended stay.
Other than Jim, has anybody built a hotel? Raise your hand.
Gentleman over here. Has
I'm
anybody
sorry,
built a hotel?
Has anybody in the room, has anybody built a hotel? Excellent. Oh, so we get some, let's say that again. We have some knowledgeable people in the room.
We do.
About building hotels. So, listen, everybody wants the right off the exit hotel spot. But in the extended stay, you don't necessarily need the best visible site out there.
Yeah.
So what does that give you? A, B, and C sites, right? You want the B and C, they're fine. So you can go off of the exit in town a little bit and find some land that is obviously zoned accordingly, that's more price conscious to what you're about to do. So that's where we start. And finding that land, plenty of land brokers out there, plenty of opportunities to do so. So the expectation is that whenever you find that right piece of land, you're going to find the construction, you're going to find the architect, you're going to find the engineers, and you know what else you're going to find is that brand. And the brand should be able to assist you in your process of locate. Not even they can help you locate as well, but you obviously have to do the negotiation and buy the land yourself. But at the end of the day, you want to find that right location for the brand of choice, not of choice hotels, of choice. Thank you for getting that. It was just a joke. They're my friends too.
No, it was funny. We all laughed. Yeah, it's funny.
So. And there's a process. We're talking anywhere from 12 to 18 months to develop a new construction property. We have a prototype. It's 124 keys, 4 stories. We have several in the ground in Florida right now. One's preparing to open up in the next, 60 days. It's a beautiful hotel. It is coming in without land under $70,000 a key. So that is phenomenal. So how do you look at some of this purchasing, making your numbers work? Sometimes you have to purchase in advance, purchase enough or maybe even more, doing multiple deals. So this particular group actually did take part in some of that buying power, so it helped them bring their numbers down to 70 a key, because it's pretty expensive out there today with raw materials. Just getting them, number one, getting them shipped to you, and then obviously constructing the hotel. So labor's always been an issue. We always have known that labor's been an issue. So I can just go on and on and on about building a hotel. So
Well,
there's so much more to talk
What would you
about.
say are the top 3 things people need to know if they're going to build or develop a hotel?
The market, first of all. Why are you building the hotel, and who's it going to serve? So, we find a lot of gig workers, military installations, emerging markets. Everyone hears about Intel, all these various different power plants that are being built. Sometimes just the construction of the demand generator itself generates demands for hotels. So there is so much construction going on in and around Columbus, Ohio, right now, and that's where we're based, strictly because of Intel and those companies that will support Intel once they're there open for business. So market number one. Number two, who's going to be coming to that market? Coming along with that, marketing. The brands you're going to pick too, strong marketing, and you need a strong local marketing effort as well. You can talk about, we talk a lot about digital marketing and getting people to the hotels, and they understand all of this perfectly. It's making sure that your business mix is correct.
Yeah.
It's extended stay. It's named that for a reason. So, we compete against the Airbnbs of the world, and there's a difference there, and we know that. So those are probably some of the main key items to do or look for when you're going into the market or to figure out the best market for you. Also, is there extended stay in the market already? What tiers are theirs? Jim has multiple tiers. We talk about a rate of 150 down to 50 per day, as he said, in those tiers. And we subscribe to Highland Group's market report every month, and we get it and we understand it. Right now, the strongest space really is economy, and it continues to stay strong. The market themselves, I think all the tiers are about 74 or 75% occupancy all the way through. So take a look at those occupancy numbers and run and see, okay, if there's a residence there, there's Hawthorne, and there's maybe not a Wood Springs or a Hometown. Take a look at that tier to see if that market segment of people, traveler, is being serviced. So those are quick three things.
Yeah, I have more questions for you, but I'm going to let you just
Okay,
have
thank
a little.
Just to Matt's point, though, those typical things. I want to go back to us kind of going. We kind of go naturally to what we've always known, and when we talk about market, what drives the marketplace. Again, it's completely different. You think about the customer and who's going to be staying there because they're living there. Things like being close to a school all of a sudden become extremely important. Having access closing to a shopping mall. Some of the things that you wouldn't think about when normally you would be like, it's close to the freeway or it's close to this. No, it doesn't need to be close to the freeway. It's those kinds of nuances that really make a difference. And Matt talked a lot about the demand generators. The demand generators are even different, right? It's those that, and I love how you say that, it's the demand generators that are coming to the demand generators. It's a couple layers back that we find extended stay. In fact, I was, Mark Lamano, who was at Star for so many years, I always said we should have, for extended stay, things that measure off of extended stay triggers, like housing starts. And rather than having GDP as our moniker, we start looking at capital investments, because capital investments mean that there's training, could be training happening, or there could be shovel-ready projects and things like that. So even just changing some of those metrics that we think about that drives extended stay is so critically important.
Yeah, and no doubt that as you're looking for business in an extended stay, you're not turning over the guests nearly as much.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have 10 to 15 checkouts on average. That's 10 to 15 guests you need to replace. Most of them have stayed 25, 30 nights. That's the beauty of it, that you can find that business pretty easily if you've got people in the market working in the backyard and get them in. And one of the things that the Highland report doesn't have that everyone should note, and probably very aware, it doesn't show profit percentage, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just focused on revenue, but the profit percentages that are earned, the margins in these hotels are phenomenal. And actually, the lower you go down the scale, the higher they are. Right? The economy hotels have the highest margins into the 60s. I've seen some 70s with ADRs now growing. But if you don't have it just right, that mix, and you're not taking care of your customer, then you won't be able to get that extended stay and get those kind of margins.
Yeah.
So talk about getting the right mix and how is it shifting? We are now 4 years, obviously, from the worst devastation to the hotel industry. And now we're, it's extended stay, all occupancy was growing. Now we're seeing a little bit of a softening in markets. So how do you think extended stay is shifting and what do you think it's going to do in the future?
Well, we kind of just talked about it. Traditionally, when I came out of the Jack DeBoer, extended stay thinking, it was seven nights or longer. And then we started looking at Power Alley, right? It was 7 to 29. And then what we see is, kind of, and Jim speaks to it too, where, our maybe upper scale is like, oh, I want some transient. And then all of a sudden Airbnb comes in and they were like, well, we want to take that customer. Really, we're a short-term residence. And so all of a sudden, what was traditionally clearly extended stay starts, like I say, getting bastardized. And so, there's kind of one school of thought is, this is where extended stay came from, and this is what it looks like, and this is how we should do it, and staying so true to that model that works, but yet how do we kind of hope to serve a different population as well? I think that's where the big question mark is, and that very clear 122-room footprint all of a sudden can grow and have different scope problems, and then that, again, goes back to eroding your profitability of the reason why you bought extended stay in the first place.
And every market's a little bit different. We know that, but certainly with the interest rates where they've been and construction slowing the last year has been difficult. We're hoping that the infrastructure bills really pay off the way that everybody seems to think they will. That will help our hotels tremendously as new construction happens. Medical has taken a step back, obviously, over the past few years. Residential's stepped up in some places, but also back down where apartments have been built. So every market does have its ins and outs, and you got to really understand that because it is quite a bit different than transient.
I know for us, and Jim, I'm interested in your opinion on this. So we support, over 100 extended stay hotels, and what we're seeing is that relocation is not happening as much. We aren't having the people come in for the interview and then the people coming for the job transfer, and then, this kind of continual, there used to be a 3-stay pattern for somebody interviewing for a job. We're not seeing as much of that, but we're seeing a lot of projects, especially in construction and building right now. A lot of travelers, traveling nurses, is those positions that are kind of the gig work, the remote work. And what happens when you have somebody staying, let's say a traveling nurse, there's a flow that is amazing because your costs are less in these hotels. And the reason why is you don't have to clean the room every single day. You don't have to, you're not churning all those people, so you don't have to have as much front desk. They actually use less of the hotel's services, so there's less wear and tear on the room. You have, there's many benefits to targeting that right business. So from a profitability standpoint and from an operations standpoint, it's easier. Is that what you're finding, and are there other ways that extended stay guests are helping just to get that flow to the bottom line?
Yeah, we like to think that 80% of the revenues that we're going to earn looking forward at any given hotel is going to be earned by what happens inside the four walls at our hotel, because we're taking care of those customers. So that traveling nurse is going to tell 2 friends, and she's going to tell 2 friends, and it goes on, and that helps that spread that word of mouth, and we have ways to incent that as well. And those folks are going to drive more and more business to us. That's absolutely very important. With our most of our extended stay and mid-scale, these hotels are running 90% extended stay, getting about 60% on the bottom line to 65. Our residence inns, they're lucky to get into the 40s, 50s with percentage of extended stay, but you can take advantage of that with special event weekends. A residence inn here in Gainesville, when there's a football game, trust me, we're taking football nights, and we'll work covers Sunday and Monday because we got to clean all those rooms and then get the extended stay back, but you have to be very careful with that. But our guests and who we allow in and the restrictions that are placed to net the best guests that are going to help our profitability. You have to think of it in terms of GOPAR, right? It's not just RevPAR. It is how much is that piece of business costing you and how much you're going to net at the bottom. That has to be factored in.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Well, he talked about restrictions. When you talk about development and restrictions of how you're running your hotel, sometimes you might have to check that person out. They may not be able to stay longer than a certain amount of days because they become a permanent resident. And I know there's probably more than one group in this room that's probably had an issue getting people out of the hotel, specifically during COVID, after COVID, because they've been there, they've had to stay there, or you've allowed them to stay there. Now you want them to move out because you're looking for that higher rate of weekly or extended stay business, but they're in that room. So that's not an easy process. Use the term eviction, right? It's not an easy process. So it is an issue in a lot of different states. So you need to know your innkeeper laws. They use an old term there. So, but you really need to find that out. That's the thought that I had when he said restriction.
Okay, so innkeeper laws is fascinating, and we talked a little bit about VRBO, Airbnb, the short-term rentals. How do we compete with them?
Can I?
You can go first.
First of all, I want to talk about this. Oh, well, first, we are talking about this. But the average length of stay of an Airbnb is anywhere from 2 to 7 nights. So, in the 7 nights, usually where they're getting the 7 nights in Airbnb is close to a resort or a resort area. Where they're getting 3 nights or longer is in usually urban areas where they just, people just don't want to stay in a hotel and they want their own Diet Coke in the fridge and they want this. So I want to be able to kind of, everybody talks about that, and I want to be able to compartmentalize it and say, hey, listen, is an Airbnb customer an extended stay customer? And I think, Jim, you said it first, of like, hey, listen, the people that are staying in extended stay hotels, they're there to do a job. They're there for a longer period of time. They would rather be home, but they're here. It's very rarely is it people that are vacationing, or is it that? So kind of really understanding, again, the customer of extended stay is very different than the customer of our, some of our transient select service hotels. And the more we understand the customer, the more we're able to target them and get them to stay with us, as well as design the hotel around them.
Any Airbnb thoughts?
Perfect.
The more
let's just say they're in our space.
Right.
They're in everyone's space, right?
They are.
So it's figure out how to maybe once in a while get some of their customers. I have marketing folks in here, distribution. So we'll go after their customers because they're coming after ours. The problem we all have with Airbnb is they don't play by the same rules as we do.
Yeah.
And that's what irritates the hotel industry. And I support that 100%. So, Jim, I think you want to add something to. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think it's just keeping an eye on it. Never underestimate your competitor, whoever they are. And they're a competitor. We have advantages. Use those advantages. Apartments are as well. We keep an eye on apartments and how they're pricing themselves to understand our pricing, because that's where our customers are shopping. And we've lost group business, construction business, to apartments or homes, private homes, because it just makes more sense for them. So they think, right?
Right.
I know I've asked our panelists to stay after if you guys want to come up and approach them about anything or get their expertise, because it's a unique opportunity to have this group of people here. But I'm eager to know if there's any specific questions that you have right now. We have a few minutes to take a question or two. Is there anyone that has anything you would like to know? Yes, sir.
You talked about the mix. What is the mix, say 0 to 4 nights, 4 to 14 nights, 14 nights plus? What's the ideal mix?
I like to see, what you're talking about is ESOC, right? Extended stay occupancy. And I even look at, as RevPAR too. But depending on the market, because all markets shift and change. But I like occupancy in ESOC right around 70%. 70% of whatever the total percentage is.
I think it depends a lot on the scale as well. I mentioned our Residence Inn in Gainesville earlier. We've been able to get that to 70, which is very high for Residence Inn. We inherited it at 40. We've gotten it to 70. I'm thrilled with that. It might be too much, actually, in a Residence Inn. Some of our economy or mid-scale, we're at 90% or better, 7+. And the real profitable piece of business or area of length of stay is at 7+. And if you can get into a couple of months, that's ideal.
Yeah.
It's really ideal. You go much longer than that, you run into some of the issues that Matt talked about.
And it's really funny to see, we did a focus group when we were launching a brand of, we did it with each tier level, right, and what they thought about the product. We had the group of 7+. We have a group that was there for 14+, and a group that there was 30+. And it was just fascinating because the 30+, they're moving furniture. They've bought something like plants, or right. They've taken down our artwork, put up their own. They've moved. They bought plants. They may have an animal like a fish, and there was another side of it too. Is almost they were a little bit. They knew the routine of our hotel better than we did. They knew when the coffee was best on Monday, and they knew that Shirley quit because she was ticked off, and they knew everything. And there was a little bit of a gritty side of them, right? Like I've been here longer than you think I have, And so it was really funny because we had to really think about how do we serve that traveler, and how do we serve that 14 totally different traveler, that 14, and totally different in 7+ as well.
I also think that if you, it depends on your market. So if you have a lot of 5-night business and you're really trying to attract that, that's your first break of when you do the price decrease. So if they're trying to call around, find out what your competitors are offering. Where's the break for them? Is it 1 to 4, 5 to 11, 12 to 29, 30 plus? I think that's way too many breaks. 1 to 7, like 7's a really weird night because you're picking up, you're picking up the entire week. How often do people stay an entire week? And if they're going to stay an entire week, aren't they going to maybe stay 10 days or, do that traditional 2-week, which is really only 12 days. So finding out where that break is, and it's very strategic based on what your competitors are doing and who's coming in and attracting that right guest. So good question.
It's funny, Tony, you bring up a good point because there was, we all of a sudden 1 to 7 became 1 to 4, right? Because we wanted to get more in that 1 to 4 sector. But then we found all these people that would just book one extra, depending on how the price fell, going back to ESOC, as RevPAR, what we would see is, of course, they would book it for 5 nights and then take off, right, and take off. And so we're like, then that's the fun of it, though.
ESOC is
Depending.
extended stay occupancy, so it has different breaks. And I think the higher priced the brand, typically the lower the amount. So like at the residence.
Right, they generally are looking at 5.
5.
Some of the other brands look at 7 plus.
Yeah. And some are 30 as you get to some levels. Did you have a question back here, sir?
Yep. Thank you so much for your time. I've heard the development costs number, and correct me if I'm wrong, 70 to 80, a key within the recent market that I'm studying or trying to develop. There is nowhere near it's even coming. So how does it make a sense because concrete is not going down, wood is not going down, whether I'm building residence in or suburban? There was a time that there was a difference. Nowadays, doesn't matter what you build, it's going to cost you X, Y, Z number. So in that kind of scenario, how does it make sense? If you're building a hotel, it's going to cost 13 to 14 million. Feasibility is only about 2 million in revenue. We hear a lot of numbers, low numbers, high numbers, this and that. But when we go and actually shop for it, it doesn't make sense. So where do this number come up and how do we make sense?
Great question.
Thank you so much.
So I won't disagree with your point. I will say that. I will not, because concrete's concrete. Doesn't matter what brand you build. Lumber's lumber. Raw materials, it's the price. This particular franchise developer has bought pretty much in the future. So it's set aside, if you will. So the more he bought, the less it costs. And he's providing me the number. We found it to be out of whack, but it's not, because he's providing us the detail on it. So that's the good part about it, that it's real. I'm not trying to sell a franchise today. I'm telling you what that costs. But I agree with you. If you're going to build and it's going to cost you 14 million, you're going to want that higher revenue, 100%. So we could probably talk a little offline together. Maybe if you come over to the booth, we can share a little bit about what this particular gentleman is doing with his group to answer maybe your question a little better.
Yeah, so, and your booth is right by our booth, just as an FYI. We're in the 500 aisle. So do you have a booth, Jim? No. Okay.
I don't have a booth either. Jim and I are in a different booth. It's across the street.
Our own booth.
Yeah, we got our own
I would like
stuff.
just one more point on your question, because the other piece of that is what do the projections look like? And we write hundreds of pro formas a year. And the way that some try and make up for that additional cost up front in building it is through ADR. And that inflation has really been great the last few years. It's hard to rely on that being the reason and the answer for this. So you have to really be careful with those numbers and make sure you've got to balance what could happen and what might happen.
Yeah, thank you. I know we are just at time. Was there one more question? Okay, please.
Yeah, this question was for Jim. You have a portfolio that's pretty extensive. With your economy extended stay with an ESOC of 30 plus, what are you comfortable with in ADR? What would you say was a decent place to be?
Every market's a little bit different.
Sure.
So I was just looking at a statistic of one of our hotels here in Orlando, and March it's a Wood Spring Suites, it ran $85 ADR. Love that, right? And we were in the 80s in terms of occupancy. I'm really looking at, we're going to look at everything in the market, including the properties, in terms of setting our rates. Most of the pro formas we're writing are in locations that can drive an ADR over the course of a year into the 70s and 80s. Over the course of a week, I don't think any of our hotels are below $350 a week, but they're as high as $700 a week. So it really, really varies depending on the hotel, what we have in-house, what's going on in that market, the demand generators, and how the others are pricing. We're going to watch that. You can't always get a perfect set to look at in our business. We're going to have some transient mixed in, which can be a false, ceiling in terms of the rates.
All right.
Economy with an ESOC of 30, because that's where that 30 plus seems to come in, right? 30 plus days.
Right. We typically are seeing it, and when you get to 28 days, which is where we price it, it's a 5 to 15% discount off of your retail.
Okay.
And the way most of the pricing is 1 night, 7 nights, 28 plus in the economy world. And so that's what you're really looking at and comparing to your competitors. But it's typically 5 to 15% there. But we're very careful in some jurisdictions. We don't want it more than 28 days, and we restrict it, maybe even 90 in some other locations.
Thank you. If you have a specific hotel and you want to bring a star report to Cheryl, we can give you, just read that and give you our opinion on that as well. I really appreciate your time, y'all. I know you, after lunch is hard. If you have taken a survey, that's great. Our contact information QR codes are, I'll pop those up another minute. And I really appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your conference. So thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.